presenter. You should get a pop-up that allows you to accept. Perfect.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
And do you see the presenter screen? Or you're good with you see the actual presentation?
I see the actual presentation.
Perfect. All right. Thanks everyone for joining. Might want to give it just one more minute since I see people joining now. All right, so hey, let's get going here. We have an hour, a couple minutes past the hour now. So can everyone hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Okay, perfect, thank you. As mentioning earlier, I lost access to my second monitor, so I'm flying a bit blind, just showing my screen. But all right, so here today to talk about Dynamics 365 Customer Insights. The first thing I want to say, and you'll probably hear me say it repeatedly throughout the next hour, is that although it's called Dynamics 365 Customer Insights, I just want to make it perfectly clear that no one needs to be a Dynamics customer to leverage this tool, right? So Dynamics is really just the vehicle or the UI to forward face this tool, but really everything is under the waterline, leveraging the Power Platform and the Dataverse and everything, and really building out what this tool is, the MDM components, the enrichment components, and everything. So just want to call that out. So if we call it D365 Customer Insights, I think one of the largest pieces of confusion we have with clients or prospective clients with this tool is that they need to either be a Dynamics CRM customer, or Dynamics ERP, or somewhere in that dynamic space, but that's absolutely not the case at all. Really, it's just Microsoft is leveraging that front end UI to surface the tool and allow you to do the low code, no code sort of programming that helps. So additionally, just want to let everyone know, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. They'll be raised to my attention. As I mentioned, I can just see the screen. So if you put those questions in, happy to answer them as we go throughout the presentation if there's a timely answer needed. But I do plan on leaving a good 10, 15 minutes at the end for questions and answers as well. So a little bit about myself. My name is Greg Frasca. I've been in the data and analytics game for about 22 years now, started in 2000. So about mid-2000, worked about nearly a decade at Verizon in a variety of functions, but really landed in data and analytics. Started my career in ETL, data management. That led to a path of more data integration, data architecture, data modeling, which eventually led to more solution architecture. But recently I've been moving into more of the data strategy and governance piece. Just the progression of my career, I really would like to see the fruits of my labor through from a strategic perspective and make sure that clients are really getting the value out of the solutions we're building for them. And a big part of that is a lot around customer insights, which is, at its core, it's a master data management tool. And then it's also, it also is a customer data platform, as we'll get into. So what we're going to talk about today, real quick, I'm not going to slide you to death with too many slides. There will be a demo, but get into a little bit of why customers need a customer data platform, and why customer insights is the right data platform to choose in that situation. So I will tell you that customer can be synonymous with, we've had customers, we've had credit union customers, so it's member insights, or we've dabbled a little bit in healthcare, so patient insights. So customer is very much a broad term for anyone, that services throughout your business. So customer insights isn't necessarily specifically geared toward retail. I mean, it is very much geared toward retail, but there are a lot of use cases outside of retail in which customer insights can be leveraged. So talk a little bit about that, and we'll get into the core functionality of customer insights. Really, this is just the setup for the demo piece. We'll go through the demo. In the demo, we're going to focus mostly, depending on how much you know about customer insights. Right now, there's audience insights, engagement insights, product insights are coming. The roadmap is pretty deep right now on this tool. Microsoft's putting a ton of investment into it, but today we're going to be mostly focused on is the basics of audience insights, which is the foundational layer of the entire insights platform. So after the demo, we'll talk about where to get started. Pre-cloud, we've done numerous POCs and pilots and implementations around customer insights. So we'll talk about, if you are interested, how to develop that use case, and how to get to that crawl, walk, run, fly sort of analogy. So, and at the end, like I mentioned, hoping to leave 10, 15 minutes for Q&A if there is any. All right, so why CDP and why customer insights is the right CDP? So right now the challenge, this is, if you've signed up for this webinar, I can imagine you've seen all of these bullets ad nauseum to an extent, so I won't spend too much time on them. But really right now, customer expectations, the attention economy, making sure that customers stay loyal to you, and retention and that churn risk is top of mind. How do we solve that with, omni-channel and 360? So right now, many organizations are still suffering from the siloed data perspective of not having that one unified mastered customer record throughout all of their platforms. So that includes, both the read-only type of data warehouse, traditional data warehouse, reporting, analytics type side, but also how do you feed that data back into your CRM, back into your loyalty program, back into all of your other sources to make sure that everyone's operating or playing for the same sheet of music. So we'll talk a little bit about that. That's a big challenge. Customer acquisition is another challenge right now. How do we find like customers, either through demographics, psychographics, et cetera, and how do we acquire these customers, or how do we reach out to them and make sure to let them know our brand is here and we're providing top-notch customer service. So ever evolving and new data sources is another big challenge we're seeing. It seems that it's endless in terms of whether or not you are sort of fishing or doing sort of a pilot or POC around a new customer data source. Sometimes you might just have a single event. Certain customers we've had have just a one-off event, a source, and maybe these customers coming into this one-off event are VIP customers. How do we go about integrating that data, that's not necessarily going to live in a CRM, not necessarily going to live in a specific source, but bringing those in. And then lastly, most importantly, is the real-time actionable insights across platforms. So you can have all the operational reporting you want, all the analytics you want. Your advanced analytics can be telling you, the propensity for churn or other things within your organization. However, if it's not real-time and actionable, it's not necessarily valuable at that point. So we'll talk about Dynamics customer insights and how they solve for that. All right, so customer data platform, as I mentioned, I'm sure many on this call, if not all, are aware of what a customer data platform is, but essentially it's centralizing customer data from across all the channels and aggregating for that 360-degree view of customers to derive those actionable insights. It's typically packaged in as a MarTech type of or marketing technology type of solution, and it very much is, but it also goes beyond that in terms of just the overall comprehensive, your overall comprehensive data estate. So it's growing quite a bit. You know, everyone, Salesforce, obviously Microsoft, Adobe, you know, so many companies are coming up with their version of the CRP, and all of them have, you know, specific advantages based on, you know, how that company engages with its customers. The benefit with Microsoft is that they run the full gambit of engaging customers from across the full spectrum, which we'll get into a little bit. So the stats a little bit dated here, that 65% growth in 2020. So I'm interested, I think this one's from McKinsey. I'm interested to see what they come out with next year to see if that 3.2 billion has actually been realized. So what does a CDP do? First and foremost, in terms of unification and standardization, it is an MDM tool. Absolutely, first and foremost, if it's not an MDM tool, you're not going to get any of the value out of it that you would expect, right? We really want to unify, standardize, build out that specific customer ID that can be shared across your platforms and be utilized to understand that you know, Gregory Frasca is Greg Frasca or whatnot. So enriching profiles, as we'll get into, Microsoft has a pretty good advantage in terms of this enrichment. You know, we have companies like Axiom and LexisNexis and various others for enrichment, but with customer insights out of box, you do get enrichment across the entire Microsoft ecosystem. So through Microsoft Graph database, so you think about LinkedIn, you think about Xbox, you think about all of those Microsoft entities, you are able to enrich customer profiles based on anything that is within that Microsoft toolbox around them. Driving insights, obviously we'll get to that. You know, what are those things that maybe tell me something I don't know type of approach? How do we take action? Again, I talked more about scalability and the adaptation and extensibility of the products. Leveraging the partner ecosystem, can't stress enough that you don't need to be fully embedded in the Microsoft ecosystem to get value out of customer insights. There are dozens upon dozens of connectors, both from an ingress and egress perspective, in terms of pulling data in from Salesforce, feeding it back to Salesforce, feeding it back to Patronics or whatever your loyalty system may be, and everything within that, you know, the best of breed type ecosystem. And there also is the ability to build custom connectors as well. Lastly, talking about building trust, this is absolutely the most important piece, along with MDM, that if you don't trust the data that's being produced, then, you know, it's really garbage in, garbage out. So building that trust, understanding the data, understanding the confidence in that data is of the utmost importance to Microsoft. So looking at that, Microsoft's solution to this is Dynamics Customer Insights. Been around, I would guess 2 years right now, but don't quote me on that, but around 2 years. And Microsoft's vision statement around this product is to empower every organization to unify and understand its customer data to derive insights that power personalized experiences and processes. So the unification is the big piece I would talk about here. It's understanding across your marketing channels, your service channels, ads, who are you advertising to, what does the workflow look like, what is someone, you know, sitting in a call center when a customer with a particular grievance or comment calls, what are they seeing on their screen to work on workflow, and how do they go about remedying that situation as quickly and as frictionless as possible. All of those things fit Microsoft's vision here, of really understanding from inception all the way through to maintenance or retention of a customer. How do we go about solving for all of those things? And the good thing is you will see is that they've leveraged the entire Power Platform to do such a thing. So really leveraging the entire arsenal of Azure to do so. So the ideal outcome here, we talk about customer journey. And again, if you're on the call and you don't have that particular retail, restaurant, hospitality type of business model, maybe you're a nonprofit, maybe you're healthcare, maybe you're a credit union, whatever I mentioned earlier, understand that there are, synonymous terms here for what you can do in building that customer, patient, member, et cetera, guest type of journey. And it really starts with that lead generation, whether or not that is a customer yet or not, leading into understanding your campaign data, what's going on the website, what is their mix between brick and mortar versus website, et cetera. What content are you showing them? What content are they consuming? What types of, get into a little bit of the insights here on the upward curve in terms of what kind of recommendations or next best action, next best offer are we offering our customers, that omni-channel support. So you know that if you call the call center knows that, Greg Frasca purchased an item at a brick and mortar store 35 minutes ago. And that support representative would be able to consume that and understand that and see the entire history of Greg Frasca within that, to understand how to take action across that. Now, of course, the cross-sell, upsell piece. I wish this slide had another line that connected all the way back to the campaign piece, because that's cross-sell, upsell, and retention are addressed. Those are things that really just cycle back into that journey and create that sort of overall holistic type of customer experience. So the customer insights approach, you've seen diagrams like this many times. What they're really trying to do, Microsoft right now, is building out every type of channel for types of data you can. There are, like I said, dozens upon dozens of connectors in terms of ingesting data or feeding data back into these systems like loyalty, POS, cases, campaigns, et cetera. So ingesting all of that data through all those data sources. The unification piece, again, speaks to the master data management. The conflate piece is bringing in all the sources as is. The map and match is defining what particular attributes from which particular entities you would like to match to determine a unified customer ID. And the enrichment piece we spoke about in terms of, and it doesn't need to be just leveraging, like I mentioned, things from Microsoft Graph data. It can also be enrichment across any kind of third-party enrichment product that you may use or want to use moving forward. From unification, we get to insights, and again, we'll go through all this in the demo in just a second, but the out-of-box AI analytics, Microsoft's done a really good job and continues to innovate around customer retention, customer churn, propensity models, affinities, et cetera, both from their data as well as your data, through your organization. The extensibility piece speaks to if you have a customer churn model that works for you, that you understand. The extensibility is that you can go out and build that custom model yourself within the Power Platform. So once you have the unification piece, the world is your oyster in terms of Power Platform and being able to go out and leverage really anything throughout that. And you have that unified customer ID from SSMS, you can put in Azure SQL DB and leverage it through SSMS, all the way through Azure ML, and you can surface it through Power BI. So you have the entire Dataverse at your disposal. And then the third-party integration, to me, this is really the most valuable piece. I spoke about this earlier, but the ability to push this data back, and this particular slide doesn't do justice into the integrations that are available to you through things like, I'm surprised not to see something like Salesforce on here. So the ability to create actionable intelligence and push that next best offer information into, say, your Salesforce CRM, so that someone, within a call center or elsewhere, or sitting behind a terminal at a brick and mortar store, is able to pull that up, see that data, and act upon it. And it can be as real time, as you need it to, depending on how much you want to flex and contract in consumption. So what sets customer insights apart? I spoke to a lot of this already, so I won't spend too much time here. But vendor neutral, like I said, connectors are available for most best of breed solutions. If you have a homegrown CRM, which we still see a whole bunch of out at our clients, you do have the ability to bring that in, in an ad hoc fashion, get value fast. Once you integrate and build out those map, match, and merge rules, you'll be able to start pulling these things immediately, especially with that enrichment feature if you do not have the third-party enrichment at your disposal right now. The AI-powered insights truly is a low-code, no-code type of approach when it comes to those canned models I mentioned, like propensity, churn, etc. It is drop downs. I'll show you a little bit in the demo environment here shortly. Owning your data. Many of our customers will leverage third party for customer unification through numerous tools. With this, you own your own data. You can set your own matching criteria. You can tinker with that matching criteria in a sandbox or development environment, do your testing, and make adjustments as needed. For example, you may bring on a new data source that completely nails who a customer is, and you're able to tie that back to a name and email address. You're able to make those adjustments on the fly. I will say that if you have 10 million customers, it's going to take a bit to process all of that. But you do have the ability to sort of tinker and push and pull on the various levers that you want to determine a customer ID or who your customer is. And then building on that hyperscale platform. So as I said, the entire Dataverse is available to you. This includes Synapse, Synapse Studio. You're able to bring in all of those things, real-time streaming data. You can use MPP, etc. What Customer Insights is doing for you is it's unifying that customer ID for you. It's providing you an easy way to access it and extract it elsewhere. It's providing you a way to enrich the data around that customer ID. And then it gives you those out-of-box things that, as you learn to crawl, walk, run, fly, you're able to leverage, what's already built in and what's already sort of the canned approach. So real quick, a couple things on core functionality before we get into the demo, just to sort of lay the foundation. We're talking about the map, match, merge mostly here. So this is the MDM component, as I mentioned. The first piece is identifying what those entities are, or if you come from a dimensional modeling background, the customer dimension is. And it's as simple as selecting the primary key. If you've used a tool like Prophecy, or I know like SAP at Information Steward or Informatica Data Quality, very, very similar to those tools as well. So you select your primary key, you select those attributes that you would like to match on in the next step. Microsoft provides the ability to determine what type of data that is in terms of city, country, county, address. Here it doesn't show phone number, but phone number would be a great extent that if you have, alpha values in your phone number, it might not be of that type. You can cut that out to various table or data elsewhere where you can work on data quality processes to correct those, bring them back in. So you can use those types. As you might imagine, they're not 100% perfect, but they do work really well as a starting point. So that's the map piece. So once you've identified what your sources are and what are those attributes you want to bring in to be able to match on, now you create your joins to other sources on those items, right? So, and we'll look at this in a minute, is the ability to look at this, say, I would like to match on, where we tend to always start is name plus email, sometimes plus phone, but typically name plus email is typically where we'll start. It's not perfect, but it's a great starting point to match and see what sort of match rate you get using those types of things. If you have experience in MDM functionality, you'll see that's a lot of times the way to do it is sometimes it's concatenating the name. Sometimes there is some data prep work you'll want to do beforehand to cleanse the name plus the email to get it in there. But once you do, you're able to choose these conditions, join on these particular items, and then we'll look at it in the demo, but there's also this precision piece, which is a combination of good old-fashioned SQL fuzzy matching as well as some AI rules to determine the precision. Again, I used the example earlier of Gregory versus Greg in this instance. So the merge process, once you have this, you can go ahead and run the merge process. The merge process will then combine and assign a specific customer ID to that specific customer. You may have a loyalty customer ID, point of sale customer ID, and a CRM customer ID. You'll still be able to see all of those throughout the tool, which we'll get to. But what this is doing is it's defining one specific customer ID for you to use throughout your entire platform. So the merge process, once you see it, you can kind of eyeball it. There's many tools where you don't need to eyeball it. It'll give you some recommendations. And this is where you really, again, you pull those levers and you tinker with a lot of this. So, lastly is the understand. Once you've done all of that under the waterline type of effort, that's when you can really pull out the insights and start looking at customer journey, start looking at usage statistics, start looking at customer lifetime value, churn, retention, etc. So, and then what's not a slide is again the ability to export that data either to other source systems or throughout the Dataverse to do additional types of analysis or manipulation to it. So. All right, that being said, move to the demo. Any questions that are in the chat?
We don't have any questions so far, so I think you're doing a great job covering everything.
All right, you're doing great. Okay, so I decided to use the demo environment for customer insights because if you haven't used it, I really would suggest signing up for the 30-day demo when you have the time to put the effort in. It comes with a data set already built in for you, although you do have the ability of adding your own data set. The way we've done this in the past for customers when they want to POC or pilot something is essentially just the easiest way to do it is to cut these files into data lake and then consume them, straight from data lake. So bring your own data, go to the data lake. You're able to work with that. So, hopefully it stops. So what you'll see here is the home. We're focused today on audience insights. You'll also see engagements insights, which is in preview mode right now. Think of engagement insights as more of the social and sentiment analysis. You can do that through audience insights, but it's a much more manual process. What Microsoft's trying to do right now with engagement insights is the ability to, again, leverage low-code, no-code type solutions to tie specific customers out to their socials or your survey data or whatnot and generate sentiment analysis. There's also, I don't know the name of it offhand, but there's a call center insights piece right now that's going on that's specifically targeted to call centers. There's product insights, which is coming. So I think Microsoft is going through the process of building up the various domains that you might imagine within an MDM solution, such as location, product, obviously what we're talking about here today, customer, and those types of things. So one thing you see here now, which is new that I think it's worth talking about, is there's a consent center. So Microsoft obviously isn't trying to get in the business of telling you whether or not your customer or guest or whatnot consented to marketing campaigns, but what this can tell you is what their consent status was at a specific point in time. So if I was receiving marketing campaign data via email, and I purchased an item via that marketing campaign, but then I decided to opt out. What the Consent Center will do is it will map that back and tell you that, Greg Frasca did consent and was opted in until such and such a date when he did opt out. And that, if you're in this business, the customer, you might imagine how helpful that would be if you have someone questioning whether or not, they were falsely or fraudulently advertised to. So we'll get to it in a minute too. I'll show you some of the Power BI componentry, but we're working with a customer right now around privacy and looking at building a Power App into their they have an existing Power BI report where they're looking at their customer data, which will show each source system that they have an assigned customer ID in, what their unified customer ID is. But if they opt out, of course, you want to opt that out across all of those, across your CRM, across your email marketing, or your loyalty, or whatever those source systems are. You can actually using this in the Microsoft platform, you can build a Power App embedded into your Power BI report that will then, go ahead and either soft delete or soft flag someone as an opt-out customer. So we'll talk about this. I'm going to bounce around a little bit. We'll start with the data piece. So data sources are where you want to determine what exactly those sources are that you want to bring in. You'll see here, this is the Microsoft sources. We have Dynamics acting as their CRM in this instance. You have a POS. You might want to bring in churn scores, which could be derived by yourselves as an organization, or you could be using the Microsoft direct churn scores. You might want to bring in website data. You see that test 1, 2, 3, and before I mentioned, you may have a one-off event or a one-off thing where you want to see who these particular customers are and what their history was. Again, leveraging the ease of data lake and dropping that in and merging that data in is pretty nifty. How quick it can work and get you to that data as soon as you want. So once you identify your data source, I'll move down to unify, which is the map, match, merge. So we see here are all of the customer sources that we're looking at for this particular organization. So for Dynamics, their CRM contacts table, which is, you might imagine, is maybe the most robust sort of source for your customer. You select a primary key, you select the fields that you want. Again, you don't have to, but you can map them to specific types. One thing that I want to mention is that you do need 2 sources specifically to conduct the map, match, merge master data process. So we actually have had a customer that they wanted to conduct this process on the same data source, just to essentially dedupe the same data source. So we were able to bring that data source in twice, name it primary and sub. I can't remember the exact naming convention we used, but we were able to bring in the same data source and run that through. However, it does require at least 2 data sources that it can map on. So we look at these things, conducting the primary key. As you might imagine, these types of PII columns are the types you would want to match on overall. Look at customers here as well. So if we wanted to do, again, we talked about full name, email. We have those things between contacts and customers. You may want to bring in some of the other data as well. Then we go through the matching process. They will give you all of the data around how they did the matching. Again, it's a combo of old school SQL Server fuzzy matching as well as AI components. This is where your user, developer, analysts, whomever, and Microsoft has built this in terms of you don't need a developer or senior developer type level person to go in here and work on this. You could have, if you're familiar with governance practices, you could have a data owner, data steward, someone of that level that's in here defining what these things are. So building out, how do I want to match these against which particular customer entities? And here you'll see that there were 40,000 unique source records. and it's deduped these down to 10,000. Never going to be this clean, but this is the lovely benefit of a demo data set. So once you've mapped and matched these, you run through the actual merge process of merging on all of these things. This is where, if you've used a tool like Prophecy or other tools, the concept of survivorship or golden record types of concepts come in, where you say, you know, for a first name, I'm Gregory in Dynamics, I'm Greg in the POS. You know, which source has the better data here, because it is combining these, and you do need to, you know, obviously level with one for a unified customer record. So you can go in here and define, hey, I think the Dynamics contacts table is really the best source to identify what a first name is here. And if there is no first name, here's your order of priority or rank in which to go to. So that's the merge process to get you, again, that one specific golden record you can move to. So from there, I will bounce up to customers here. The next piece that comes out is a customer card. So on its surface, this is what a customer card looks like. I'm going to bounce around a little bit here. I'll just pick on this person. Without getting into metrics and enrichment yet, you can see here this customer card, which is the left pane here, is really just the specific attributes about the customer, and then where all these IDs live. So this particular customer has been identified in the contacts table, in the POS, within the website users, as well as the intelligent output data. So from there is where you really need to get to, and we'll get to this in a second, the measures and segments, which is the activity timeline in terms of measures. So this is all the transactional piece. I mentioned earlier that you need at least 2 customer data sources, or people data sources, I guess. You also need at least 1 activity to really light up this tool. So you need a transactional data. The easiest one I'll use is a POS, you know, sales order line type of table to determine what the transactional activity was over time. And you can bring in a lot. Again, people familiar with dimensional modeling, this is essentially your fact tables, your transactional fact tables, which are capturing really any touch point this customer has had with the organization. See, an email here was sent, this was opened, this was unopened. So obviously getting some email campaigns. This is an online purchase, et cetera. And you can change these data types. I know it doesn't look like a $sign here, probably should. So this is the activity that you attach to that customer. The value here, and you might be thinking, why would I need this tool to do that, is that you now have these sources all combined into one unified customer identifier. So now, no matter how many transactional pieces you pull together, they're all matched to that specific customer identifier. So, and the last piece we'll get into here is more of this intelligence side, which is these are some of the CAN models looking at churn, total online spend, online purchases. Here are some affinities where you can look at what this particular person purchases. And again, this could be data that is available to you through the Microsoft Graph database solution. It could be data that's available that you have already ingested through the tool, and you can combine and integrate those things. So this is where you sort of build out your affinities in this piece. So this is what a customer card looks like. And again, all of this data can be exported throughout the Dataverse. So from here, we get into your segments, so you can build out these segments. Let me start with measures, I'm sorry. So measures here is where you can build all of your measures. You can do things, if you look at this one, I believe, I hope, yep. You can you know, write your own queries against anything you know, within your platform to determine this. So this particular one, we want to look anywhere within the email tool where an email is opened, right? So number of opened emails per year is the metric. But you can also, yes, so this one you can also do just your basic groupings and aggregates if you have a simple number that you want to do any particular thing you would see in SQL or elsewhere in terms of aggregation or grouping by these things. So this particular one, the churn scores was already determined. It created a scored probabilities metric. We're just summing that metric overall throughout the organization to come up with what that measure is, or by the customer rolled up all the way to you. So when we get into segments, these are ones that you can build out yourself. So what you're not going to see here is that this data in the trial environment's a bit older. So if we could go back a year, it might look a little bit better. But these are all of your customers that provided a low review score, maybe for survey data. You can drill into these individually. It may or may not be the tool you want to use to do that. But you do have that ability to do so. If it's not, again, you can push that data out to whatever source system or operational tool you'll use to determine how you want to look at that. So you build these segments. A lot of these things are in preview right now. They're really trying to leverage AI for suggestions and insights and things of that nature. So that's the segment piece as well. The one thing I didn't cover, I'll circle back quickly, is as you want, once your data is map matched and merged, 3M is what we prefer to call it rather than that full, but relationship is really the mapping of the activities to the specific target entities you want, right? So, and in almost all cases, but not all, the cardinality will be many to one of activities to a specific customer. So you can set your relationships there. And then exports. This is not an exhaustive list, but I will show you this, just some of the pieces that are in here where you can export this data, throughout your organizational ecosystem. So we have a customer that is exporting it to Facebook, and Facebook is, using their ad technologies to derive ads within their Facebook streams based on the data that is being fed from Dynamics customer insights. So you see Salesforce. Again, this is not at all an exhaustive list. There are many. I think with a quick Google search, or if you send me an email, I can dig it up and send it to you. There are numerous already built-in connectors where it truly is. You can set up an API connection. I think my mom could probably set up a couple API connections with some of them with how easy it is. And that might be an overshot, but it's very easy. So that being said, we're at 11:42. So just want to give a quick example of a sample dashboard that was built using this customer data. Once that data is available, once that customer ID is identified, once those churn models are attached to that customer, whatever churn, propensity, customer lifetime value, whatever it may be, is attached as attributes to that customer. You can really go into something like a Power BI and source it specifically, just like you would source it from an Excel spreadsheet or from a SQL database or from wherever. You can source it from the Dataverse or the Power Platform customer insights. And from there, you can use that data to build out specific reports. This is very generic, but here you can see it by geography. You can go in here, look at sales by months. Obviously, this isn't a Power BI demo, so I won't spend too much here, but you can filter it down to whomever you're looking at and make those types of edits there. You can look at a specific customer and what their history is here. As I mentioned earlier, it might not be the tool in the customer card. Maybe you want to use it, maybe you don't within Dynamics, but it's easy to recreate that transactional history or those customer journey analytics within a tool like Power BI. And additionally, as I mentioned, you can even embed something like Power Apps within this to actually take an action with Sarah Venerable. So if specifically someone on the floor finds out that Sarah was unhappy with her purchase for XYZ reason, you can either do anything, you can do something to remove me from all lists, would be the unfortunate outcome of that, but you could do something like send 50% coupon or whatnot, and you can build in that functionality really within Power BI using Power Apps to do those types of things. which would then connect either through batch or API, et cetera, back into those specific source systems to flag Sarah as someone who needs to receive that 50% coupon within the next 24 hours or whatnot. So all these things can come up. You can aggregate all of these. You can combine data sources throughout, within your semantic layer. Whether or not using data sets or something like tabular model, you can just join these as you would any other data source within those things to really put the full picture together. Additionally, you can leverage Synapse for real-time streaming or multi-parallel processing and things of that nature I mentioned earlier. It's really all at your fingertips. I think I have what you can start doing here within the Power Apps tool to start building that out. All right, so back to present. Any questions here before I get into the where to get started piece?
We had one question come in.
Sure.
It states we have 3 CRM systems currently in our company pulling data to centralized data cloud. Can customer insights pull data from the consolidated data in our data cloud, or do we have to connect it directly to our CRM?
I'm really sorry. I'm having a hard time hearing you. I don't know if that's just me or if it's everybody, but.
Is that better?
Oh, much better. Yes.
Okay, great. It states we have 3 CRM systems currently in our company, and we are pulling all of that data into a centralized data cloud. Can customer insights pull data from the consolidated data in our data cloud, or do we have to connect it directly to our CRM systems?
You should be able to pull it. What is your consolidated cloud product? Is it?
It just says a centralized data cloud.
Okay, as long as you can land it in something like a data lake or anything from a flat file CSV to up to if it's in, say it's in AWS or it's in GCP or wherever it is, you should be able to pull it in from any of the primary sources, modern primary sources, or like I said, if you don't have that option, whatever consolidated data cloud you have should be able to export that data into some sort of CSV, which could land in a data lake and then be consumed by customer insights. So you'd want to know.
It's Synapse.
Oh, Synapse? Oh, yes, absolutely. So there's recursive relationships between Synapse and customer insights. Don't have the slide. Wish I had the slide in. But I do have a slide that demonstrates that I can show you. That really, again, once you're in the Dataverse, Dorothy turned, but once you're in the Dataverse, you have that ability to really leverage anything within the Azure platform to use this data. So, does that answer your question?
I believe it does. Yes, he said yes.
Okay, yeah, I would say that if you were to do that, you'd want to look at, hey, does it make more sense to do some upfront data integration work, consolidate this as much as we can, and then consume it by customer insights, where we could do maybe some additional consolidation work. There's some basic data cleansing you can do on the way in that will only, increase your match rate and things like that. Or do you want to pull directly from the sources? So you have that option.
Great, thank you.
So I just want to talk about, where to get started if you are interested in leveraging customer insights, if any of this is resonating with you. Typically what we do in most of the time in partnership with Microsoft or 3Cloud, we'll conduct these is a design workshop and POC. So we do the prepare and we do the crawl, walk, run. Very much a cliche term, but I think it applies here. So the first piece is prepare. Typically what we'll do is maybe a couple-hour workshop if necessary. Sometimes many of our clients will have that use case specifically that they're clamoring for, and that use case workshop isn't necessary. However, sometimes you really just want to talk it out and figure out what is the best use case we want to go into. I would not, and I don't think development practices in 2022 really speak to this either, but I would not go in trying to bring in all of your customer related data sources immediately into the product and going with that waterfall approach. I'd really base it on use case. So what's the first use case? So first use case could be we use Salesforce as our CRM and Paytronics, I'll pick on again, as our loyalty program. Right now we don't have any integrations, or we have minimal integrations between the two. And we really need to understand which loyalty customers need to be offered, call it the holiday spring sale type of offer through an email marketing campaign, right? Not my best analogy here, but or use case, but coming up with that use case specifically, right? So building out the use case, coming in, that POC plan framework and POC plan finalized is to say, hey, here are, this is where it gets a little bit into the technical nuts and bolts, but what are those sources we're going to pull from? How are we going to pull from those sources? Again, do we want to cut it to a flat file that we place in a data lake? Do we want to connect directly? What's the frequency we want to pull these things from? Those sorts of upfront type of discovery and design piece. Doing that design workshop, coming up with the functional plan of how we're going to pull those things in. The ERD, the relationship diagram is complete. We define which measures we want to get at, which segments we want. So say the holiday blockbuster campaign is that you want to send a 50% coupon to anyone that spent, $100 in the second half of 2021, but hasn't shopped at your location or been present at all in 2022, right? So those are those people that are at risk potentially of churning. So you maybe want to execute a campaign to retain those types of customers. I've been in many industries, but primarily retail, restaurant, hospitality. So I'm going to keep using that. But like I said, there could be numerous use cases outside of that industry as well. So once you have that preparation and design complete, you go into the crawl piece. So the technical components activated is speaking of getting your customer insights environment set up. So you can use, there's a 30-day trial that comes with Microsoft. There are specific row limits that I do not know offhand. I can't remember if it's 100,000 or a million customers, which is a large difference, but basically getting that environment set up. If you have a Microsoft rep or your managed account, or even if you're not, reaching out to your Microsoft rep, if you have specific use cases that don't fall within that, the constraints or the governors around the POC environment, typically they can remove those on the back end by changing your licensing structure. I never said that, just kidding. But they're pretty open to doing that. So crawl piece, again, the map match merge function, which is the under the waterline. People don't necessarily, it's not the shiny new fun piece, but if you're in the data game, you understand the importance of that. The first insights iteration, building out that customer card that I showed earlier, those measures and segments and things like that. And then ingesting any other additional data sources. Like I said, in the crawl phase, you might just want to choose maybe your CRM and your POS, two sources that you know are institutionalized, you know them very well, you have that customer data, you know that for the most part it's cleanish. It's never completely clean, but cleanish, and that you can go through the process of unifying those customer IDs. From there, we look at bringing in additional sources. The technical assessment speaks to the fact of looking at, okay, we're doing the sort of bare bones piece of bringing in these easy sources, but what do we want to do long term, right? What do we want to look at long term in terms of exporting this data to MailChimp or whatever your email marketing tool is, or other tools about the organization, or your customer care type of tool or whatnot. What's the big picture and the roadmap of where we want to get to? From there, we'll devise that enterprise plan. So you show them the POC, but you understand that, hey, this is just the first piece before building out the greater, bigger picture. From there, the run, and when I say run, I mean run from a POC perspective, not necessarily from a full enterprise integration perspective. But what we have found is that customers really are getting value out of just the POC, which is great. So makes it more of a proof of value than a proof of concept. But going live with that, confirming the value, and then typically ourselves 3Cloud, or we leverage Microsoft, partner with Microsoft and 3Cloud and your organization to build out something like that executive readout that really demonstrates the power of the tool, where it's going, and what the best case scenario is for you in terms of the long-term roadmap. So that's what I would suggest. Whether or not you leverage us, Microsoft, whomever, I would really focus on first looking at that use case based approach and just trying to solve for that specific use case. I know I'm probably preaching to the choir in terms of modern development practices, but a lot of people want to run before they can follow along. So with that being said, I only left 5 minutes. Sorry, I went a little bit over, but I'm open to any additional questions if anyone has any.
We have not had any additional questions come in so far, so we can give it a couple seconds to see if anyone else wants to add anything before we close the webinar. Oh, we got one. Where is the data stored in customer insights? Is it Dataverse?
Yes, it is Dataverse. So as you consume it, it is consumed by Azure. Where specific data goes, I don't think it's one specific spot, but really everything is available via Dataverse. Anything that you input can then be consumed as a source elsewhere in the Dataverse, wherever you would like to use it. I can't say that's for every Azure resource, but I have not heard of any Azure resources where it can't be consumed, where there was a requirement for that at this point.
Are there built-in reports that CI provides?
Yes. There are built-in reports here. This isn't necessarily the greatest example of it, but there are, oops, wrong area. But there are pieces here in terms of enrichment and looking at this brand affinity. You can see here's if we want to look at the brand enrichment piece of customers, you can get these sort of canned approaches, very similar, whether or not your Dynamics customer, very similar to most CRM type out-of-box reporting. But where you would want to get more advanced is to use a tool like Power BI. And it doesn't need to be Power BI. If you're a Tableau customer, you would need to add that extra step of exporting it, well, maybe not even an extra step, but exporting it to a database somewhere where it can be consumed by a Tableau or whatever reporting tool you currently use.
Can those reports be integrated with D365 CE?
That is a great question, and you have stumped me. I want to answer yes, but I'm going to say no. I'm going to say I'm not going to answer that until I can look at that. So let me just make a note. I can get back to you on that. Never asked that question.
And so far, those are the only questions we have.
Yeah, I will say, I don't know if my contact information, is my contact information in the invite? I would say I'm happy if you have any additional questions. I'm G Frasca at freecloudsolutions.com. If you want to ask any questions or need further information, absolutely happy to help you there. So
we got one more question come in the chat, and then we'll go ahead and end the session. Is it able to create the master record?
Yes, yep, that's exactly what the match merge process does. Here is it will create that master record for you. Let me find, if we go here, let's see. This is not a good report to demonstrate that, but yes, it does create a master record for you. So let me go back into this here. You can see here's a customer ID that creates this particular customer ID is the unique combination of all of those previous data sources that I showed, coming up with that specific customer ID. And that's the customer ID you would then export or proliferate through your organization as your unique mastered customer identifier.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you everyone for joining us. And this session was recorded and it will be available on our website. So if you want to refer back to it at a later date, you'll be able to do so. And thank you everyone. We hope that you join us again for another webinar.
Thanks everybody.